Good day, everyone. Welcome. This is my first video, and we're going to be talking about creating and editing your own free book cover with AI and GIMP. When we're done with this process, we'll wind up with a cover that looks similar to this. This file, the original file, will be available for download from my website. The link is below. I want to help with the boring parts, so we all have time to focus on more writing. And at the bottom, you see I've published 4 books under B.D. Murphy. Why is this important to talk about book covers? Well, here's your view. Here's where your book sits. Here's your competition. You have to be visible to a reader so they will look at your book more than just the cover image. So it's important. But I look at it also as it's things that you need to understand how to manipulate, change, fix. So we're going to talk about why should you create and edit a book cover. What are the elements of a book cover? The book cover size template, generating the AI art, creating the cover from all the parts, making the output files, the JPEGs or PNG files you need, and we're going to talk about copyrights at the end. So, why should you know how to edit a book cover? Well, you could have a placeholder for your beta readers. What do they get? Just a blank page or a blank cover, and you just ask them to read. You don't get an ISBN until the last step in the process for most self-publishers. You can go buy your own and have it available, but if you're doing it through Amazon, Draft to Digital, any of the other big guys, you get it to the last step. What about if your book receives an award? You want to show off the win. The final book could have a different page count, and we're going to go into that in a little more detail in a minute. You get better cover art. What about if the information on your back cover changes? So let's go in a little more depth on what are the elements of a book cover. You have the title, the author name, back cover blurb, bio. All of those are provided by the author. That's you. In terms of the size, well, we're going to get the size that we need from a template, and we can use the KDP calculator to be able to get that. There's the artwork that goes on the cover, and you can get that from different places. You could put a branding icon. You can put an optional barcode. If you're going to sell paperbacks in a store, that could be very useful. So let's talk about the size template. So this is generated from KDP. I've added some words over the top to describe it. And the parts of the cover, this is an 5.5 inch by 8.5 inch book cover. They're the same. The only difference between these two is the spine size. So the right side is the front cover. This is what you would see from an ebook, nothing else. If you have a paperback, you have to have a spine and a back cover. The back cover can be blank if you want. But what makes the difference here is the number of pages in the book defines how big the spine is for the wraparound of a full book cover. So you need to know the page count to know the size. So we're going to go through that and get one. These are the steps. This is the same link. These are the steps to create a cover template. And I'm choosing 5.5 by 8.5. And I'm going to say 300 pages. So I have a little bit of space for the spine. I calculate it. There's the dimensions. But it's not really usable for us to create a book cover. So I'm going to download this template. It shows up in my downloads, and it's a zip file. So I'm going to double click in Windows to open that, and then I get a PDF and a PNG file. And we want the PNG file. So I'm going to extract that, just use the defaults, and it creates a folder with the same name as a zip file with this PNG file in there. So now I'm going to go to GIMP. Now I'm going to load the template. I'm going to Downloads. I'm going into the folder, and I'm picking the PNG file. There's the start of our book cover. Okay? Now we're going to download the other elements. The next element is the artwork, and we're going to use gemini.google.com, and we're going to use this prompt. That's all we need. You can put in much more complicated prompts. You can adjust what it looks like based on what you put in, but we're just going to use this for this demonstration. And it's going to take it a minute to generate the artwork. And whatever it comes up with, we're going to use for this demo. So there we have our artwork. Now I could go back and say, just generate the same thing again and get a different picture. I could ask it to change something in the description, whatever I want to do. So now that I have that, in my downloads directory, I have a picture. Okay. Next part we're going to download is the barcode generator, is the ISBN barcode. And then we'll have the elements we need to generate the book. So in this field goes your ISBN number. It's either one you've purchased or you get from the publisher you're using. And just to do something silly, I'm going to put in a price. And you'll see that that shows up over here on the right hand side. And now to download this and make it easy, I'm going to do the JPEG with a white background. So going into my downloads again, I have a barcode. Last elements on the back cover, I'm going to be using this blurb and bio just as a reference point. Okay, we have all the parts. Let's start building the template from that initial structure. So now going into GIMP, I have my template. And building the structure that we're going to use for this, I'm going to do several things. I'm going to put in some guidelines. These are, I'm setting it vertical. These are guides that are going to help me through the process. And I'm going to now select the movement tool. I grab this and I move it. And the reason I'm creating these guidelines is when the image, art, and the text is all on here, I won't be able to see the lines that you can see right now. But I need these lines to be able to position things. So I'm creating these guidelines. And I'm putting ones in the middle, not over other lines, because it'll tell me where the middle of that item is. Now, why are these guidelines important? Or why are the lines in the template important? So these lines in the pink area are the trim lines for the book. When you publish a book for paperback, they are going to print everything out to this outer edge of the pink. When they finish printing it and putting it together, they're going to cut it, trim it down to these lines. So what a reader is going to hold in their hands is what's inside these lines. So they're important. So now just to make sure for all of the people that want to make sure it's exact as possible, I'm zooming in, I'm holding the control key and scrolling with the mouse wheel, and I'm moving these to center them. And the next step, to put the center ones in, we're going to do some calculations. So I'm going to open the calculator. And what I'm doing next, you can actually have the calculator here and then go over to GIMP and see the space, the location. In the lower left-hand corner in GIMP, where my cursor is, there's the position of the cursor. So I'm going to go to this right side in 3780 is the right side of the spine. And then I'm going to subtract 3375. That's the left side of the spine. So the spine is 405 pixels wide. I'm going to divide that by 2 to get the midpoint, but then I have to add the left side back in. So the middle line should be at 3577. So now I'm going to grab that and move it. Now I need to do the same thing for the middle of the front cover. I'm zooming out so I can move quicker. The far right side line is 7080. And then I need to subtract 3780. Same line that I used before. Now I'm dividing by 2. 3780. So the midpoint of the front cover is 5430. So let me get over here. I've placed the lines. Now the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and talk about a little GIMP feature here. On the far right side here is the layer section. Every component we're going to put in this is going to be on a separate layer so that we can manage it. Think of layers as stacks of paper on your desk. And what we see on the screen is what the visible layers are showing us. So I can turn this off. But what I'm going to do right now is click on this box and I'm going to lock that in place. So as I try to move things, it doesn't move. And you see on my little cursor, there's a little circle with a slash through it, meaning I can't drag this anymore. Okay, now we're going to create the front cover from the pieces of information that we've put together so far. So from the downloads, I need to get the image. And there's the image. Now to put it on the template, I'm going to hit Control C, go to my template page and hit Control V. And there I have the image. It has its own layer. This image isn't the right size, so we're going to adjust that. And I'm going to do that by adjusting the layer size. I go up to Layer, Scale Layer. Now the size I need is I need to get it as the closest size as I can of the front cover, which is, if I look at the top of the screen up here, it tells me the overall dimensions of this cover. So what I need to do right now is use this second dimension. So how high is it? 5250. And I hit Tab to make both of them the same. And there I have a full-size image. Now to make this usable for our front cover, I'm going to use the movement tool and I'm going to drag it over. And I don't have to stop for the image. The trim line is here, but I don't want the picture to be skewed to the right. I want it to be in the middle of the front cover. So I'm moving my little author here to kind of line him up in the middle. And I'm also checking up top and bottom to make sure I don't see any pink. So that's kind of where it needs to be in the center. That center line helped us. The guidelines don't print when you're done with this, so don't worry about that. So now I'm going to lock this in place. I can come back and change that and unlock it later. So to create the verbiage we're going to have on the front cover, we're going to use a new tool. We're going to use the text tool. And in this view, what I've done over here on the left when the text view comes up is you got several settings to use on when you create the text. And what I've done is I've gone to the style and selected outline and filled. And what that does, it lets me put in text that'll be, in this case, white with a black outline. And I'm going to show you that. So I've selected the text tool. I'm going to come over to the front cover area, make a box, just clicking and dragging. And then I'm going to create the title for the book. Okay, so Now I can have these selections over here as well, and I'm going to choose a different font. And the font I'm choosing was one that I downloaded from Google Fonts. Link is in the description below. And I got this font because I asked the AI what are the best fonts to use for a book cover, and it gave me some information on that, and I used that as well. So I need to change this to get all the. I had to select the text, and now I can select Oswald to be used. And now, because that's not taking up that much room, I'm going to make it bigger. So we're going to say that's our title. And I'm adjusting this box so I can get close to the letters, because I'm going to move it to be centered on the page. To do that, I'm going to hit the movement tool, and then I'm going to come select it. And if you'll see the icon, my cursor, it changes depending on where I am. So when I get to a point where I can move it, I grab it and it moves. And in the middle of that box, there's a plus sign. If I put that plus sign on that middle guideline, I've got it centered on the page in that section. Okay, now we do the next part. Going down here, I'm going to leave the font, but I'm going to make this the same size as the title. So now I'm adjusting, and I do the movement tool and put it in the middle. Now in this one, because the white of the background of the picture kind of masks some of the lettering, I'm going to go back to the text tool, highlight the text, and I'm going to change this border that I talked about so you can see how that affects the outline. So to make this a little better, I'm going to set the outline at 2, but I'm going to bold the text, and it caused a problem, which we can easily fix. I'm going to go down here and adjust this out further to get the text where it needs to be, bring it back in. Now I'm going to use the movement tool to make sure it's centered. Okay, so there's the basics of a front cover. If you're doing an ebook, this is all you really need. Next, we're going to create the spine, putting together the pieces of information we have. So to make the spine, we're going to use these two elements we have on the front plus an icon. And so to make this work, I need to start with the working title, and the spine of a book usually has the same information that's on the front. What do you see in the bookshelf when you look at the spine of a book? You see the title and the author. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to use the layer piece over here, and I'm selecting working title. I'm going to right click and say duplicate layer. So now it's created another layer. You can't see it on the page because it's exactly over the top of the other one. So I'm going to lock the first one so it doesn't move. Select the movement tool. I'm going to move. I selected the correct one. I've got the movement tool. There we go. Now I can move this. Now we can look at it as we change it because it's too big for the spine. I need to make it smaller. So I'm selecting the text, going over here, and I'm just going to put in 350. Does that looks like it might work, so we're going to try it. So now I've taken the box down to be the same size as the text, and now we need to make it vertical. So in GIMP, I go over to the Tools, Transform Tools, Rotate, and in the angle, I want it to be 90 degrees. Tell it to rotate it, and I have a 90-degree lettering. Select the movement tool, I'm grabbing it, and I'm moving it over to the spine. Now it's jumping around a little bit. I'm going to let go, zoom in, so I can get a finer movement on it and put it in the middle. Okay. Now we're going to do the same process for the name, author name. So I'm going to I'm going to click on the layer, duplicate the layer, then lock the original layer. Now I have a movement tool selected. I move that up. Select the text tool so I can change the text. Change this to 350. Adjust the box. Now tools, transform tools, rotate 90 degrees. You can get the movement tool. And I put it in place. And when you do yours, you can do anything that you want on there. Now I'm going to add an icon. So in order to do this, I'm selecting the layer I want, hitting Control C. Going back to my page here, I'm hitting Control V. So movement tool is selected. I was locked on the other page, so this was locked here. So I unlock that. Now I can grab it, I think. Oh, it still had the dialog. So now I can grab it and move it over here because I want to change the size. So this time I'm going and right clicking on the layer piece over here and saying scale layer, and I'm going to put 250. Hitting tab so they're both 250, and I get a smaller version. Okay, with the movement tool selected, I'm going to grab that and I'm going to move it down to the spine, and there it is. So now we've created the spine of the book cover. So working on the back cover elements are the blurb, the author bio, barcode, actually anything you want. It's your book. So to do this, I can't use the white background of that template. In fact, I'm going to turn that off for a second. So I need to have something that'll show the text. So to make it easy for this situation, I'm just going to create a single color background. I'm going to do that with a new layer. And I'm going to say black background. I'm going to leave all of these pieces alone for a second. I'm going to choose the black background, and I know it's black because over here it's showing me that the little square there is black, but I can change that. And now for this dimension, I only want it to be basically halfway across the book, so I want it to go to this guideline. So I need it to be 3780. Okay, and there I have the black background, and it's going right to that edge. So the front cover is visible, and then the spine and back cover are black. And I can adjust this. Use the movement tool. I can shift it over if I want more of the front art to be showing on the spine. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to leave it like that. Now the other thing to talk about over here in this is I can turn it on and off, but the reason it's in this spot is because I want the text visible. If I took the spine text, so working title, and moved it into layers below that, you don't see that anymore. That's because if you look down vertically, the black piece of paper is over the top of the text now. So I'm going to put that back so we can see it. Okay. Oh, look down here, I see a little line. We're going to zoom in. And this is where we get, just going to do a movement adjustment. That's all it takes. You can adjust it how you want. Now we're going to do the back cover blurb. So I select the text tool and I create a box. Okay. Now I'm going to leave the font the same. I want to change this to 150 to start with. It's going to be white text. Now I'm going back to the presentation where I had that text and I'm going to grab this blurb, Control C. Now I select this and hit Control V, and it gives me a message because it's too big. It actually didn't use that change. So I'm going to select all the text. I just clicked on it, held my Shift key and the down arrow to get that. Changing this to 150, and there it's changed. A little too small, doesn't fill the space I have, so I can use this plus sign and cause it to increase the size. Okay, let's leave it at 175. Okay, text tool. I'm going to create a box for the author bio. And I'm leaving space on both sides because of the way the book works. There's a bend here for the spine, and there's a trim line over here. Let me go back and get to the simple bio text that I created, or I had AI create for me. Click there, Control V to paste. Now I'm going to adjust the size. And let's see if 175 will work for that. There we go. It's reasonable. Okay, so I'm going to select this, move that edge up, which moves the text up. That's because I selected the wrong area. I'm moving this up because I needed to make space. I'm going to show you by turning this off. I need to put a barcode here. So that's the next step. Let's go do that. Let me go back, get the barcode that we downloaded. And this is asking, do you want to convert it to GIMP's internal format? And I'm going to say yes. There I have a barcode. Control C for that. Go back to this page. I'm going to hit the movement tool to not select the text. Hit Control V, and there's my barcode. Now I move it down, and it's too small. So I'm going to go to Layer, Scaling Layer. From doing this, I know that's going to be about 1250 work. And it's not symmetrical this time. It's a rectangle. And there I have my barcode, and I'm going to put it a little over the yellow square. So I have that. Let me turn the black back on. And you see that the barcode is invisible because it's below the black background in the stack. So I'm going to move it up. And there we have the barcode. So the next step is we have to generate graphic files. To generate the graphics files, we're going to put them in the formats we need for an ebook, 1600 by 2650, about that size. Doesn't have to be exact. The full wraparound cover, we're going to use PNG format. And then a small format that we can use for posting on social media. The file that we're editing, version of that's is available on my website for download, so you can get the entire GIMP file and manipulate it any way you want. So first we're going to make the front cover. Well, the front cover isn't all of this. The front cover is only this front section. So how do I do that? Well, we're going to go over to this tool. It's called a crop tool. And we're not destroying this. Don't worry about that. We're going to get it all back. I'm going to come up here to the front cover, upper left, drag this down to the lower right, and hit enter. Okay, that is the front cover. But if I look up here at the top, see the dimensions, it's bigger than the 1600 I need for an ebook cover. So I'm going to scale that. Now I want to scale all of the layers, not just one. So I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to scale the image. I'm going to select 1600, hit Tab to adjust that, and let it scale that. Okay, now I need to export it. That's the process in GIMP. I'm going to export it as a PNG file, but I don't want it to have that name. And I don't want it to be in that directory. So let me go to the Downloads directory, and the name I'm going to use is Working Title, Front 1600 by 2545. Okay, now GIMP comes up with a dialog that lets me set other parameters for the PNG file. I'm not going to worry about those. I'm just going to hit Export. Now I'm watching the progress bar down here as it saves that. Okay, and that's the basic process for scaling and exporting. You can do that with whatever portions of the image art that you want. So now to get back to the full original, I'm going to hit Control Z, and now I've gotten back to the original. Now we're going to export this as a full cover. So I'm coming over here, same directory, but I'm going to say full, and the dimensions are 7158 by 5250. Now when you're publishing your book to a publisher, they may accept this full size, or you may have to adjust the size to whatever size they expect. But they'll tell you what size they're expecting, so you can do that. So this is getting exported. And once this is done, I want to make one more. And I'm doing it as the full cover. You can do it as the front cover if you want, but this is going to be one that's sized for social media. It's doing a lot of calculations to export this into that PNG format. We're almost done. Okay, now I'm going to scale this whole image again, 1080 width, and it sets 792 is the height, and I'm just going to not mess with that. It's calculating. It looks small, but that's the size it is now. And now I'm going to export as full cover, but it's got different dimensions now. 1080 by 792. And you can always check up here at the top to see what that size is. I'm going to accept the defaults there. Now I'm going to hit Control Z to get back to where I was. Okay, and one more step, very important step we should have been doing all along. We're going to save this GIMP file. So we're going to save it. So you do this so you have the entire file to edit. And I'm putting it in downloads. Let me put it in documents. Working title full. No dimensions because this is the full GIMP file. I'm saving that. Now that's saved. We have one more section to talk about, and then we'll be done. There is a catch. The U.S. copyright law says that you cannot copyright things generated by artificial intelligence. That means that original artwork, that picture, can't be copyrighted. The book cover, the final version that you create, can be, but that original art can be used by somebody else. In fact, I would expect that this picture that you can download from my site, people may play with it and do stuff with it. They can do that. I asked Gemini for the rules around usage of Gemini generated art, copyright, and accessibility, and there's a document linked below that you can look at. When you contract with a human artist, like on Fiverr like I did, they'll usually have in the contract that you get to use that. I even put the link to the person I use to generate my artwork. You need to know your legal use rights before using any artwork. This was set up so you could generate one, and a book cover for play for your beta readers or to publish. It's up to you. So if you enjoyed the video, find it useful, please subscribe and like. I'll be looking at generating other videos that will help people with their author journey. Let me figure out some of this stuff so you can spend more time writing. Thanks, everybody.